Cinema Siren.
Most adults have learned or are continuing to learn the hard way that a multitude of emotions are necessary to navigate the experience of being human. But how far back did our minds start figuring that out? That's the main concept behind the gorgeously trippy, deep, and fun new release, Inside Out. Pixar films have often been themed around cooperative adventures that lead to growth and a sense of belonging, while successfully making it accessible to audiences of all ages. Helmed and co-written by Monsters, Inc. and Up director Pete Docter, Inside Out takes that theme and brings it to a delicious life in a new, exciting way. It's a clear signal to Hollywood that invention and originality do often lead to great finished works of cinematic art. 11-year-old Riley's mind has a control center with 5 emotions hard at work, keeping her moving forward as she lives her rather idyllic life in Minnesota with her loving parents. Since Riley is a happy kid, Joy, Amy Poehler, is in charge. Fear, Bill Hader, keeps her safe. Anger, Lewis Black, makes sure she determines what's fair. Disgust, Mindy Kaling, judges what might be physically or socially poisonous, and sadness, Phyllis Smith, is there for some reason none can quite discern. When Riley's parents move with her to San Francisco, it's the job of her emotions to help her handle the transition. Her acute homesickness appears to Joy to be causing havoc at headquarters, and things go very wrong when in the confusion, joy and sadness accidentally get transported to the farthest reaches of Riley's mind. They have to journey back through everywhere from imagination, train of thought, the dream center, and abstract thinking to the scary subconscious. Coming across one of Riley's childhood memories, Bing Bong, along the way, while hoping all doesn't fall apart completely as fear, disgust, and anger run headquarters. Amy Poehler talks about what makes Inside Out so different.
I think what separates it is that it challenges us to go deep and think big. It takes a really big conceptual idea and it makes it really beautiful and small and universal. I think the actual art, like the color and animations, feel like really new to Pixar. Like the shapes and world feel, I'm not visual enough or artistic enough to express why they're different, but they are.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of hard jokes and a lot of emotional stuff that they're not afraid to do. And it's almost like they're not afraid of the minor key, and they just play it a lot in this film. So it feels like really fresh and exciting because of that.
To anchor the story in believable constructs, the animators and writers of Inside Out connected with experts in the field of neuroscience and decided the 5 emotions they feature based in part on the expert advice of psychology professor Dr. Docter Keltner. He suggested the 5 that made every psychological researcher's list. Here's what Pete Docter says about the emotions.
I always feel like joy is something we all want, right? We're all after. You go to the bookstore and there's tons of self-help books, finding your inner joy, and finding happiness and all this. And yet life is full of difficulty. There's unexpected disappointment and loss, and that is ultimately why all these emotions that we think of as kind of negative, they're actually helpful. They have a real purpose and a reason for existing.
The actors are well chosen for their roles, and going forward, Amy Poehler may forever first be identified as ebullient, plucky central figure Joy. There are worse career problems. Character art director Albert Lozano said Joy was designed by taking an image of a sparkler and adding a face, legs, and hands, and she really does feel like she glows. Character actress Phyllis Smith brings authenticity to sadness, hitting every lethargic, woeful note. It would be great for Inside Out to open more doors for her, or at very least to glean her a well-deserved Annie Award for voice acting. Hader, Black, and Kaling round out the cast of emotions so well it's hard to imagine anyone else playing each part. Richard Kind also adds delightful dimension as childhood pal Bing Bong. Director and co-writer Docter was inspired for Inside Out by his daughter Ellie, who started changing as a preteen from exhibiting mostly joy to a variety of more complicated emotions, harder for him to read as a parent. Those changes made him ask himself what was going on inside her head. Ellie was also the inspiration for young Ellie in Up, and even supplied her voice. Indeed, the human characters in Inside Out Riley, played by Kaitlyn Dias, and her mom and dad, Diane Lane and Kyle MacLachlan, are classic Pixar designs reminiscent of those from Up and Toy Story. The visual landscapes in Inside Out not only further the story, but allow for connection by both child and adult audience members. There are two very clear worlds. The outside world Riley experiences as she reluctantly explores her new home, and the inner world of Riley's mind. The outside world is very subjective but desaturated, whereas the mind world is full of bright color, caricature, and geometry. Production designer Ralph Eggleston says they looked at it as a Broadway musical from the 1950s. There's no question that Pete Docter, who attended Cal Arts, which was nicknamed Disney U, respects the history of animation and has always allowed his influences to actively inform his work. He has mentioned many times how important Disney's 9 Old Men were and are to him as an animator, and even authored a collection including 9 flip books with original art from each of them, which you should check out online or at a bookstore near you if you want to know more about the history of Disney. Inside Out's influences stretch across animation history, although visually they seem to have chosen mostly mid-century cartoons as inspiration. Disney's 1943 short Reason and Emotion, with its metaphoric struggle between the caveman, emotion, and the pencil pusher, reason, deciding how we choose our actions, was a sort of precursor to Inside Out. Then Disney's 1953 short Toot, Whistle, Plunk, and Boom, a trip fest with its mid-century modern minimalist aesthetic, looks to be part of how Inside Out is designed, especially as part of the mind's deeper recesses. Also, Sadness looks startlingly like a mix of the Professor Owl in that short and the film's Oscar-winning director, Ward Kimball, an animator Disney called a genius, who was, incidentally, one of Disney's 9 Old Men. Producer Jonas Rivera talks about the power of old Disney movies.
We look at the films of the great Disney with Fantasia and Snow White and Dumbo, and I mean, not a day goes by that these films don't come up. And I think we're after just the way those films made us feel as kids. There's something about those films that there was a charm and there was a grace to those movies that is really hard to even put your finger on. I mean, even now, as we've done a ton of analysis on them and broken them down every which way, there's just this magic, not to be corny about it, that those films have. And we hope that we are trying to honor that a little bit in our medium and in modern ways, but just a little dash of the tone of those films is what we're after. So that, I don't know, I mean, I saw those movies as a kid, and as we all did, and that's what made me want to work in animation.
My absolute favorite section of Inside Out is when Joy, Sadness, and Bing Bong traverse through the abstract thought section of Imagination Land, and various things start happening to them based on how the mind works. That scene is reminiscent of one of my favorite Chuck Jones cartoons, 1953's Duck Amuck, and Jones is another animator Docter cites as a major influence. The deep message of Inside Out is about allowing both joy and sadness, as well as other less charming emotions like disgust, fear, and anger, room to inform our growth and expansion as people. It may seem a simple idea, but Inside Out examines and uses the philosophy and psychology of what the mind is and how it works, and what role emotions play in human interaction. It does so with all the usual Pixar flair for placing bittersweet truths and life lessons in layers both children and adults can access. Kyle MacLachlan talks about what people can expect from Inside Out.
I think some of the themes are maybe there's a maturity that these themes approach that I think children will be interested in and will elicit some conversations, I think, with parents. There's some moments that are a little maybe uncomfortable, but they are fulfilled, they are realized in such a comforting way. And by the time the film is finished, you will have gone on an amazing journey. Very complete, very emotional, very satisfying. You're going to walk out holding your kids a little bit tighter.
I give Inside Out 5 out of 5 stars for being well-voiced, multi-layered, fearless, gorgeous, and inventive. For more reviews, interviews, and expert guidance through a sea of celluloid, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Now, go find a new favorite film.